Good evening. Thanks for joining us for a new season of Sagas. I'm Reagan Bond. Sagas is a news magazine created 3 times a semester and is made up of feature stories involving Seaman High School and the Seaman community. The theme for this show is new. Tonight's show, we look at a new teaching method, new school opening in the district, and a new threat to women. In our first story, we talked to teachers about their experience with a new way of teaching. Every year, more and more teachers transform their classrooms to become blended learning environment. Blended learning uses technology and group work to enhance student engagement.
You might have noticed the new blended learning signs in front of classrooms lately. Well, actually, these aren't new at all. There's been a push for a new type of learning at Seaman High School. It is called blended learning.
Blended learning's an educational program or an educational model that allows students to have flexibility or choice over the pace, the path, the place, and the time of their own learning.
Blended learning is using the ability to pull resources from different places, especially online, into the classroom and using those to enrich student learning.
There is a total of 11 teachers at the high school that have gone through the formal blended learning training. Mr. Collins and Mr. Weens are 2 of the blended learning teachers.
I think one of the reasons that I became interested in it because I have always kind of done things a little bit differently, and I had done a little bit of reading. I tried to build in reading on a consistent basis in what's going on in education, and I had seen blended learning a couple of years ago and just kept seeing it, had read a few blog posts, and I heard about the success stories, and it kind of matched the way, like my personality, and basically a blended learning classroom is in some ways dysfunctional, or you could call it organized chaos, where there's a great deal going on and students are doing a lot of different things in the moment.
Every year I have students that seem like they need a little bit of a different pathway to have success, and English classrooms have a tendency to be very like rows and desks, reading and writing, very traditional. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but I thought blended learning could give me more pathways to reach kids for whom that probably wasn't a natural fit.
I first learned about blended learning about 3 or 4 years ago when it started to become a more common term in education. Another administrator in the district, Annie Diedrich, she was the one who first passed the term along to me. Annie Diedrich, Mrs. Diedrich, is now the principal at Seaman Middle School, and she had been the principal at Elmont Elementary, and it was at her Elmont Elementary where teachers first started experimenting with blended learning, and it's taken off from there.
Mr. Collins is a first-year blended learning teacher, but Mr. Weens is a second-year blended learning teacher. I asked both of them what positive and negative experiences they've had so far using blended learning.
I've enjoyed it a lot. I think it's been really successful. It has led to me investing much more time in lesson planning beforehand and having to be more detailed with how I want the hour to run. But it's freed up the class time that I do have to get to know my students and their strengths and weaknesses better.
I look at student data, like how have my students done on exams, how have my students done in homework, how have my students done in their writing, and I can use that data to formulate what it is that I'm going to do next. I can differentiate, like if I have a student or a group of students that need a different focus, blended learning allows for a better direction in that area.
Both teachers explain why they think this new teaching method will stay.
And I think you're going to see significant changes to the way that classrooms run. I think you've already seen significant changes to the way that classrooms run, but I don't think that's going to slow down or reverse course.
Students. So there's obviously a part of me that is cynical that I've heard since day one. I began teaching where teachers said like, oh, it's just a new fad and it'll fizzle out. But maybe instead of looking at it as a new fad, it's better to look at it from a positive standpoint. Like this is a new method, and other methods will come along, and let's embrace this and become better at it and see where it is that it takes us.
The number of teachers that integrate blended learning in their classroom is only going to increase in the upcoming years.
This new teaching style doesn't look like it's going to go away anytime soon. Not only is there a new teaching method, we also opened a new school in the district. You may have spotted some construction going on at the old Lyman Elementary School. It is now the Mathis Early Learning Center for Seaman's next generation. Seaman USD 345 has been planning on opening an early learning center for a long time. They finally had the opportunity when some of the elementary schools in the district shut down.
The idea behind it is that we really want to give kids in the district the best start that they can have to school. And we know that that means high quality early learning opportunities from birth through age 5. We do that here in this building through preschool services as well as parents as teachers.
At Mathis, kids can start as early as prenatal with an organization the school offers.
So kids can start in our Parents as Teachers program prenatal. So we have pregnant moms that start in that program. And then once they turn 3, then they're eligible to come to the preschool program.
Most of the learning that happens at Mathis is hands-on. This style of teaching is to engage them into what is being taught.
We are very play-based, so all of our learning has to be embedded and integrated into play. The kids also have large group times and small group times where we focus on some more specific academic kinds of learnings and tasks that they need for their own development. And then for art and things, those are embedded. We also have partnerships where we may, ask Washburn Art Lab to come in and do activities with us, or we may take field trips there, that kind of thing that gives those specific opportunities. But the kids actually have things like art every day because that's the best way for them to learn.
What centers are your favorite and what do you do?
Play, and the center is cars.
Cars? You like to play with the cars? What do you do with the cars?
So we go down the slide, and there's behind it, it's a food place.
At Mathis, they learn the basics of the same subjects that we learn.
We prep them for kindergarten in all areas. We have a really strong emphasis on reading and literacy because we know that that's super important to their success through school. And so we want to start them off with that sound foundation of learning the sounds of the letters so that they're pre-reading by the time that they leave here. We focus on numbers, lots of inquiry, science, experimental kinds of activities. Everything is very hands-on and engaging, and it still has a purpose of higher vocabulary and process and product, that kind of thing.
Okay, what do you guys learn in class?
We have to sit on the carpet and we have to listen to us. If we don't listen and talk, then we're gonna get in trouble.
I'm hoping that the future holds lots of great things for Mathis Early Learning Center. It's a fantastic place to be. We've got the most amazing staff that there could possibly be, and the most amazing kids and families.
Why do you like coming to school?
Cause it's brand new, cause I just got it to be here.
They hope in the future to expand their space to allow more kids to walk through their doors. Now, switching over to a more serious topic about women's safety while running. This summer, University of Iowa student Molly Tibbetts went missing while she was out running. This captivated the whole United States. It was discovered she was killed by a man while she was on her run. Kidnapping, violence, and danger have always been prevalent in the society for women, but it seems that even more so recently, female runners have been the victims of a wild string of attacks.
20-year-old Molly Tibbetts died from multiple sharp force injuries, according to Iowa State Medical Examiner. They ruled her death a homicide.
Vanessa Marcotte, a 27-year-old Google employee, was visiting her mother when she was killed.
A vigil for 30-year-old Karina Vetrano, who went out for a jog around 5 o'clock Tuesday and never came home.
Molly Tibbetts, Vanessa Marcotte, Katrina Vetrano. Names in a recent string of killings targeted specifically at female runners. This topic of females being targeted while running directly relates to female cross-country runners at Seaman High.
Usually, I haven't had a lot of concerns. I run quite often, and most people know that about me. I've run through some dangerous neighborhoods, things like that, and I've really never had anyone directly confront me. But I think that's a lot different for women, especially young ladies, and they can be a lot more vulnerable in those situations. Than I'm fortunate to feel pretty safe.
So like guys will like catcall my friends and give us creepy looks and say stuff to me. It just makes me feel a little more unsafe.
Not only have girls felt unsafe while running, there have been local incidents leading to concern.
One specific memory that comes to mind is when I was an assistant at Washburn Rural, we had a very, very successful young lady, and she would train quite often, and she had to train, by herself some of that time as a consequence. And at one point, she was running behind Washburn Rural Middle School, south of the school in a nature area, and she came across a homeless man. And although I don't think he had any ill intentions, it was in the early morning and it made her very frightened. And so from that time, we made an effort to make sure that she had someone to go running with, whether it was a teammate or a member of her family or a coach.
For that cross-country runner, she was lucky it was just a chance encounter and the coaches were able to make a change to keep her safe. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case for a former student at Seaman High School.
Brenna Morgart, of course, is probably the biggest situation that we had. When she couldn't have been a nicer young lady, nor a smarter young lady. And yet she was running alone, on the road, and unfortunately, you can never predict what might go on in someone's mind that would cause them to do something terrible to someone. But that was just a devastating situation for her and her family, of course, and all of us that really cared for her.
Brenna was murdered by an individual while she was out running. But what are options these runners can have to stay safe?
In general, awareness is the most important thing you can do. Just be aware of your surroundings, be observing. Partnering up or running with a group is also a really good strategy. And then running in neighborhoods that you're familiar with, and you might have a friend's home nearby that you could go to.
I'd say run with a buddy and make sure you're in a populated area and make sure you're not running in the dark, like early morning and late night.
With the construction of our new trail at the high school, the girls now have another option.
The number one reason was for safety, in order to get all of the cross-country kids and the other athletes off the roads. So I would recommend, we have a great Viking trail out here, use it. And if you kind of notice during the days, off and on, there's people out there all the time walking on it.
Make sure to use all opportunities you have to stay safe and to always remain cautious and aware.
It makes me feel a little less safe knowing that you could just be out doing something as simple as running and someone could just come up and do what they wanted to you. Just last week, a young woman was stabbed to death in the Washington, D.C. area. With the increase in female joggers being killed, make sure you are aware at all times and take the necessary precautions to come home safely. Another national topic is about the controversy on athletes kneeling during the Star-Spangled Banner. Joe is here to give his opinion on the matter.
Kneeling during the national anthem, is it a sign of disrespect or something else? Popularized by NFL player Colin Kaepernick, it is seen by some as a form of disrespect towards our military service members. It should not only be fined, but completely disallowed. Yet to those who participate in it, it is a form of protesting not the men and women who have served our country, but the country itself and the injustices within it. This form of protest, though, is completely acceptable and should be upheld by the powers of the law and the Constitution. According to President Donald Trump, as much as I disagree with the Colin Kaepernick endorsement, in another way, it is what this country is all about, that you have certain freedoms to do things that other people think you shouldn't do. Furthermore, the flag that they are kneeling needs to be understood better. It is a symbolic representation of our nation. It needs to be viewed separately from those brave soldiers who serve it. The act of kneeling towards it is not meant as a sign of disrespect towards those who have given their lives to protect us, but towards the institution that has oppressed many minority groups within the United States. Their belief is that the liberties, freedoms, and ideals that are supposed to be supported by this country are being mistreated. They still respect and honor those that have served us in many different ways, but believe that the nation they are serving is inherently corrupt and must be fixed. These citizens are mad about the mistreatment towards them. They believe that racism is still very prevalent in our society and are working extremely hard to fix these problems. Make sure to keep yourself up to date on this hot topic, as there will surely be more to see about it in the future.
Thanks for watching the first episode of Sagas. We will be back November 1st for the next episode.